They say every house has a story. Some stories are warm, others are dark. But this house in Kailash Nagar, near Ramnagar and Chhattisgarh, carried a shadow so deep that it silenced the street for 8 long years. Behind its quiet walls lived 2 respected doctors, a married couple known for their work in the district hospital. Dr. Ganesh Kumar Suryavanshi, 54, a specialist in sonography, and his wife, Dr. Usha Suryavanshi, 52, an experienced gynecologist. People saw them as healers, as saviors. No one could have imagined that one day their home would become the center of a chilling mystery. For over a decade, the couple had lived in this house following a simple, disciplined routine. Mornings at the hospital, evenings returning home. They weren't very social. Their neighbors knew them, respected them, but the couple mostly kept to themselves. April 2017 began just like any other month until suddenly something felt wrong. From April 4th onwards, the couple vanished from sight. No visits to the hospital, no calls returned. Relatives thought they must be busy with work. Colleagues were puzzled but not alarmed. Not yet. By the second day, the silence around the Suryavanshi home became harder to ignore. The hospital confirmed they hadn't reported for duty. Neighbors hadn't seen them leave or arrive. Calls to their phones went unanswered. Still, no one thought of the worst. Not until April 6th. When the air in the neighborhood changed. A foul smell began drifting from the house, thick enough to make passers-by stop in their tracks. At first, people assumed it was a dead animal, but the smell grew stronger, heavier. Some neighbors gathered outside, whispering their theories. The lights inside were still on, the ceiling fan spinning, and the TV faintly murmured through the walls. Everything was running as if the house were alive, yet no one was moving inside. Even stranger, the front door wasn't locked, just pushed to. That was when fear replaced curiosity. They called the police. Within hours, City Kotwali police arrived with their team. The moment they stepped inside, the stench hit them with full force. Following the smell, they reached the courtyard and froze. On the floor lay the bodies of Dr. Ganesh and Dr. Usha, surrounded by a gruesome splash of dried red. Beside them, 2 heavy stone blocks lay smeared with blood. The sight was so shocking that even seasoned officers fell silent. It was no robbery. Nothing was missing. Usha's jewelry was untouched. Cash lay where it always had, and there were no signs of forced entry. Whoever had done this had been let in willingly. The forensic team combed through every corner. In a nearby room, they found faint blood stains that had been scrubbed as if someone had tried to erase the truth. On the top of a wardrobe, scrawled in sketch pen, were chilling words. "You don't need me. Never contact me again." Similar messages appeared on scraps of paper around the house and in Dr. Ganesh's diary. Police began to suspect tension between the couple, maybe even violence. But both bodies had the same brutal head injuries. This wasn't a one-sided attack. Neighbors confirmed that the couple argued often. Sometimes their fights grew so loud that outsiders had to intervene. But if Ganesh had killed his wife, who killed him? And why were there 2 stones, one near each body? It was clear there had been another person in the house that night. Someone close enough to walk in without raising suspicion. Someone who had managed to disappear without a trace. Investigators questioned every possible suspect. Relatives, hospital staff, even their domestic workers. A former maid admitted she'd had an argument with Dr. Ganesh and stopped working for them, but she had an alibi. The couple's former driver had a criminal record and had suddenly left town, but there was no direct evidence against him. CCTV coverage in the area was non-existent. Weeks passed. Leads dried up. By mid-2017, the once high-profile case began to fade from public conversation. Months became years. Officers were transferred, files gathered dust, yet the case remained open. A ghost story whispered among police, a knot no one could untangle. Then in December 2024, the district's SP announced a reward for any information leading to the killer. And in February 2025, a new team decided to resurrect the investigation, determined to solve what so many had failed to. They pored over old files, re-interviewed witnesses, and sifted through 8-year-old call records. And then, almost like a shadow stepping into the light, one name began to surface again. A name they had seen before. The former driver. His name was Satyaprakash Sahu, 35 years old, a man who once sat behind the wheel for Dr. Ganesh. On paper, he was just another former employee. In reality, his shadow had never fully left the Suryavanshi home. Neighbors told police he still visited occasionally, even after quitting. Why? No one could answer. When the new team checked old location records, the pieces began to align, eerily. On the dawn of April 4th, 2017, just hours after investigators believed the murders happened, both Ganesh's missing phone and Satyaprakash's phone pinged from the same location, the bus stop in Kawarda. Moments later, both went dark. Later, his phone reappeared on the network far away in Durg. Ganesh's phone stayed dead forever. Even more unsettling, on April 5th, his location showed him back in the neighborhood, lingering near the crime scene. But why would a man return to the place where two people had been brutally murdered? Unless he had a reason? The team split into units. One went to the Kawarda bus stop, retracing steps that had been cold for 8 years. Most shopkeepers had changed. New stalls had replaced the old ones. Still, a few older faces remained. The tea vendor, a cigarette seller. They remembered the day well. The murders had been the talk of the town. And yes, there had been a young man that morning, maybe 27 or 28 back then, pale and restless, sipping 3 cups of tea before boarding a bus. It was strange, the tea vendor said, that early in summer nobody drinks that much hot tea. That man, they confirmed, was Satyaprakash. For the next 6 weeks, police tightened their watch. Quietly, they studied his movements. He had no idea the case was active again, no idea that the circle was closing. Finally, on July 3rd, 2025, they took him in. At first, he was calm. Too calm. He denied everything, claiming he hadn't been near the house. But there were no CCTV tapes to corner him, no eyewitness willing to testify. Suspicion wasn't enough. They needed the truth from him, and he wasn't going to give it easily. That's when they decided to break the deadlock with science. The court approved a series of tests, a lie detector, brain mapping, and even a narco-analysis. For hours, questions drilled into him, about the couple, about his visits, about the night of April 3rd. His body told truths his lips wouldn't. Then came the marathon interrogation, 14 hours, then 24. Bit by bit, the mask began to slip. Satyaprakash had always been close to Dr. Ganesh. In fact, he claimed Ganesh owed him 1,80,000 rupees, money he had lent but never got back. After quitting his job, he had visited often, pressing for repayment. A few days before the murders, someone filed an FIR against him in another matter. Fearing arrest, he vanished to a small town 44 kilometers away. But on April 3rd, desperate for cash, he came back. That night, he arrived at the Suryavanshi home around 10:30 p.m. Ganesh answered the door. Inside, a quarrel between husband and wife was already underway. Usha stormed out of a room muttering angrily. Voices rose. Then, without warning, Ganesh grabbed a heavy stone and struck her. She collapsed instantly. Before Satyaprakash could process what he'd seen, Ganesh struck again. The driver stood frozen, a silent witness to a killing. But the silence didn't last. Ganesh turned toward him. In that moment, Satyaprakash claimed he saw his own death in the doctor's eyes. He pushed Ganesh in panic. The doctor stumbled, hit a table, fell. Satyaprakash seized the second stone and brought it down. It was over. 2 bodies, one terrified man standing over them. What followed was cold calculation. He waited. He thought. No one had seen him enter. No one would see him leave. He dragged both bodies into the courtyard, wiped the room as best he could, then left the fans, lights, and TV running. At dawn, he walked out, taking Ganesh's phone, shutting only the door. By 5:30 a.m., he was at the bus stop. By afternoon, he was in Durg. The phone was pawned for a mere 100 rupees. The next day, curiosity dragged him back to the neighborhood. The smell hadn't yet given him away. He stayed, spoke with neighbors, even expressed his shock at the news. When the bodies were discovered on April 6th, he was there again, blending into the crowd, offering condolences, answering police questions with rehearsed innocence. For 8 years, he played the role perfectly, but now, in July 2025, cornered and confronted with every detail, he spoke without emotion, as if unburdening himself. He walked the officers through the crime scene, step by step, recreating the night. Photographs from 2017 matched his every move. The police filmed it all. Their proof for the court. For investigators, the case was finally cracking open. For the first time in 8 years, the truth was no longer buried. But the bigger question loomed. Had this been an accident born of fear, or a calculated act of opportunity? And if fear truly drove him, why did he stay so long after the first death? On July 5, 2025, the police made it official. Satyaprakash Sahu, former driver of Dr. Ganesh, was under arrest. The press conference was swift but electric. The SP laid out the timeline, the motive, the confessions, the reenactment. For the families, it was a mix of relief and shock. 8 years of uncertainty had ended. But the answer wasn't simple. This wasn't a cold-blooded outsider killing for greed. It was something far more tangled and human. In the police's eyes, there were 2 killers in this case. Dr. Ganesh, whose rage ended his wife's life, and Satyaprakash, who ended his employer's. Each death fed the other, a chain reaction set off in minutes but stretching over nearly a decade. In legal terms, the driver would face murder charges, but the truth was a shade of gray the law doesn't always recognize. Was it self-defense? Was it panic? Or was it the long-simmering tension over unpaid debt finally exploding? The evidence was strong. The crime scene recreation matched the forensic records from 2017. The stone weights used in the killings were identified, and photographs taken back then now aligned perfectly with Satyaprakash's account. Even the pawn shop owner confirmed receiving Ganesh's phone for a mere 100 rupees. This wasn't just a confession. It was a map back to the night of April 3rd, but as the investigation wrapped, questions still whispered in the air. Why hadn't the original 2017 team seen the truth? How had a man so close to the victim stayed so close to the investigation without suspicion? Some officers privately admitted the case had been mishandled. Others blamed the absence of CCTV, the lack of forensic breakthroughs at the time. Yet for the public it felt like something more, as if the killer had been hiding in plain sight, shielded by his own audacity. The courtroom battle loomed. The police prepared the charge sheet, determined to secure a conviction before the memory of the case faded again. Witnesses were lined up. The forensic team's documentation was watertight. Even so, the defense would argue fear, not malice. If the jury believed it, the outcome could change everything. For the families, the trial promised one last emotional storm before any real peace could come. Outside the legal world, the case became a local legend. Neighbors still lowered their voices when walking past the house in Kailash Nagar. Some swore they could still hear the faint hum of the ceiling fans from that April night, the air forever holding the weight of what happened inside. Others saw it as a warning that the darkest turns in life often happen between people who once trusted each other the most. In the end, the truth was both clear and unsatisfying. A husband killed his wife. A driver killed his employer. 2 lives lost in moments of violence. 8 years lost in silence and shadows. The police had solved the how, the when, and the who. But the why, that most human of questions, remained a murky place where anger, fear, and survival tangled together. As the police sealed the case file and the court date approached, one question began circulating. A question that doesn't fit neatly into legal codes or forensic reports. If you were the only witness to a sudden, brutal killing, and you believed you might be next, would you run, call for help, or do what Satyaprakash did?